Hey folks, Job here. After returning to the game in 8.3 not that long ago, I was just able to get my first 5-mask Horrific Vision done last week, so I wanted to put out a video of the run itself, as well as a few tips that I think may help other players along the way. Like a lot of other players returning to BFA in this patch, I'm not completely decked out with rank 3 or 4 Azurite Essences, nor am I perfectly optimized with corrupted effects, and my item level is sitting right under 460 at the moment. With that being said, this video isn't meant to show any type of speedrun tactics or self-imposed challenges. It's simply something to reference for other players in similar situations. The point is, you don't have to play perfectly to accomplish this, as you'll see in my run, and you don't have to be 470 or higher item level with everything optimized to put out enough DPS to get through the run either. With a bit of research beforehand and some careful play, combined with the confidence to carry out your DPS rotation or general output while keeping up a good pace, which really comes from being prepared beforehand, this is definitely something to start going for, as it's never been easier to get your Cloak ranked up for the sanity drain reduction, and with Torghast coming out in the new expansion, it's a good time to get used to challenging solo content. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it. We'll take a quick look at some of the gearing and talent choices before getting to the run itself, and I'll also drop in for a bit of commentary here and there during the run if I think there's anything that should be pointed out or something that might be useful. So of course, this is a Horrific Vision of Stormwind with all 5 masks enabled. You can pause the video briefly if you want to read over what each of the masks does, but basically they add a different element of difficulty for you to deal with during the duration of the run. Ultimately, these impact your overall sanity or amount of sanity drained from various sources during the vision. To start, I personally like to stay under 40 corruption for most content, as there are certain situations where the Thing from Beyond spawning will put you in really a position where you're either really far behind or altogether putting you in a unrecoverable situation in a lot of these visions. As for the corrupted pieces, I was running with rank 3 Twisted Appendage, rank 1 Twisted Appendage, and 2 Versatile Amplifiers, the 6% variants, mostly for PvP. More than anything, having a good tentacle spawn right before engaging a boss or another pack was a tremendous boon, and it really serves to keep your pace up even when your DPS cooldowns aren't available. Secondly, the most important piece of the whole equation, your Legendary Cloak. I would strongly recommend having your Cloak ranked up to 15 for the reduction to passive sanity drain during the visions, and in addition to that, having at least researched the trait which grants sanity on elite kills in visions will also make this a much smoother experience. As for our Azurite Essences, for this run, mine were all still rank 1 and 2, though I didn't find this to be a huge deal overall. As a major, I was running Breath of the Undying for Reaping Flames. Even without this being rank 3, I found this much more valuable for engaging difficult packs or bosses than my previous lower mask runs with Focusing Iris. I just didn't find Focusing Iris to be available often enough to take over Breath of the Undying in this type of environment, and even getting the ability to move while casting it didn't change that a whole lot. To briefly touch on the minor traits, I'm running Conflict and Strife, Lucid Dreams, and Crucible of Flame. These are all good for a bit more damage and a little bit of sustain throughout the run as well. Next up, Azurite Traits. This is the exact same loadout I use for PvP, and I didn't really bother to change anything around here for the vision specifically. For the outer runs, I'm still running 3 Latent Poisons, 1 Wilderness Survival for the cooldown reduction on bombs, 1 Primeval Intuition for the increased focus cap, and 1 Wildfire Cluster, because it's what was available, though it is pretty nice during these types of runs with all the AoE. For the inner rings, I focus primarily on Elemental Whirl and Unstable Flames for secondary stat boosts. And for my defensives, I opted for 2 Resounding Protection traits and 1 Impassive Visage. These are both great for sustain, and even Nature Salve, if it's available for the extra heal and exhilaration, is quite nice too. Quick note on other notable pieces of gear, I'm just running with the weapon that you get as a PvP reward to start. I believe they're 440 item level. Aside from that, the Remote Guidance Device trinket is the only other piece that was legitimately impactful throughout the run. Finally, let's briefly cover the talents we're running. I won't spend a lot of time going over each available choice in this video, just what I thought worked best for me for these runs. First, I'm running Alpha Predator for the second charge of Kill Command. This works very well with the level 60 talent Bloodseeker, and you'll often find yourself forced out of melee range during Horrific Visions runs, so it's good to have another button to press for damage as well as focus regen. Second, we've got Guerrilla Tactics. Having a second explosive charge is really too good to skip over when run in combination with the level 100 talent Wildfire Infusion. Particularly in this type of content where you can really maximize the AoE potential of your bombs, this is really where this trait combination shines. Hydra's Bite is certainly viable too, especially with 3 Latent Poison traits, but I honestly just prefer trading a more bomb-heavy loadout. Third, we'll be running Camouflage. There really isn't another choice here, and camouflage is extremely valuable in this type of solo content. You can use it to skip certain packs or areas, as well as using it to regen HP when moving to the next fight. For the level 60 talent, as mentioned previously, we're running Bloodseeker. This synergizes really well with Alpha Predator, as mentioned before, and it's easy to have this rolling on more than one target for the increased attack speed. Murder of Crows is not really a bad choice necessarily, but I opted out of it when swapping over to Breath of the Undying as a major trait. If you're having a lot of trouble with the individual mini-bosses, Crows might be worth having as an extra cooldown to burn through. For the 5th row, I run with Post Haste basically 100% of the time. This increases your overall mobility after disengaging through the vision, as well as being able to clear slows and roots, so it's really super useful throughout the whole run. Second to last row is going to be Mongoose Bite. Not a whole lot to touch on here, as it's basically non-negotiable talent for survival. It's your bread and butter, and being able to manage Mongoose Bite stacks while being mindful of your focus pool is a big part of pumping out the big DPS. Lastly, we have Wildfire Infusion. This again works extremely well with the previous trait that grants you additional charges of Wildfire Bombs. And just like the previous trait, being able to maximize your current Wildfire Infusion is a big part of your success as a survival hunter. So that just about covers it. We'll go ahead and get the run itself kicked off here now. As a last note, I would recommend at least bringing some sort of well-fed buff, as well as a flask appropriate for your class, and maybe a augment rune as well. Though it isn't totally necessary. I don't think I ended up running with the flask in this run either way, but something to be mindful of. Alright, so with all that stuff covered, we're just about ready to get into the run. As mentioned before, if there's something that I think might be helpful, I'll drop in for a bit of commentary on that particular section. Otherwise, I'll mostly just leave some music rolling. Like I mentioned, this isn't necessarily a step-for-step guide, nor is it a display of a flawless run. This is just to show what the experience might look like as a returning player who hasn't built up all of their essences or corruptions yet, and may or may not be into Mythic raiding or Mythic Plus dungeons. As always, if you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe for more as we move towards the Shadowlands expansion. We'll be putting at least a couple of new videos out each month on the way there, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, thanks again for watching, and let's go ahead and get into it. Quick note about this part here, you'll notice a bunch of different colored potions scattered throughout the vision, and these are beneficial effects for the most part. However, there is one particular color each run that'll reduce your sanity by a bit when taken. You can tell which color this potion will be near the very start of the run by mousing over the potion next to the dead NPC in the corner here. Once you know which color is your bad potion, so to speak, you can feel free to down the rest of them without issue or concern. The buffs themselves vary, with the most potent being the plus 100 sanity potion. Keep in mind that the colors for each effect will change every run, but the effects of a specific color will remain the same within a single run. just wanted to drop in for a second to touch on sanity levels going into some of the more difficult encounters, as this was really my downfall during my first attempt at a 5-mass Stormwind vision. For me, the two most difficult encounters through the run were Matthias Shaw, as well as the Boundless Corruption in the Mage Quarter. If you're under around 50% sanity or so before a particularly challenging encounter, I would strongly consider using a sanity orb before engaging. With how high sanity drain resistance is with a rank 15 cloak, you don't need to be too conservative with your orb usage during most of the run, and considering where the difficult encounters are relative to the overall run, it usually ends up being a good time to use an orb anyhow. notice that I'm sitting down to eat here and there throughout the run. This is for the 100 sanity region from eating a kebab for 10 seconds. This took some getting used to for me, as I never really tried to use it before my 5 mask runs, and I don't think it's actually necessary for a successful run either. On the contrary, there has been several times where sitting to eat at the wrong time will just lose you sanity overall, as you'll have to move out of a madness, or you'll get jumped forward by a madness, stuff like that. Basically, try to just eat between the corrupted areas if you can, and make sure that if you do eat in a corrupted area, it's right after the madness effects strike, so you can give yourself a bit of time. Alright, so that about does it for the run. I had a really good time building up my cloak and working towards a 5-mass run, and I'm happy to have done it with my character's current state. I'll likely make another video for my 5-mass Orgrimmar run, but that's gonna have to wait another week or so, as I disconnected right near the end of my run last week. Really big bummer. At any rate, thanks a ton if you've made it this far, and if you did, feel free to like the video as well as subscribe for more content like this as we get closer and closer to Shadowlands. Got a few videos that I'm working on at the moment, and it should keep us on pace for a couple videos a month. Although, as I always mention, that will increase as the expansion gets closer and closer. It was nice to make a video that wasn't as PvP focused, just to have some variety on the channel, though don't worry at all, the PvP videos and tutorials aren't going anywhere anytime soon. As always, thanks again for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.